Coming home early was supposed to be a surprise. Not just for Savannah, for me too. I needed to feel something different, even if it was just the satisfaction of stepping into my own house without an itinerary strapped to my back. It was a Thursday afternoon, late summer, hot as sin in Atlanta. I'd wrapped up a short regional tour with the band a day ahead of schedule, small venues, no fuss, just local gigs for quick cash. I was still sticky with the smell of bus vinyl and old amps when I wheeled my carry-on through the front door. The AC hit me like a blessing. I dropped my bag in the hallway and took a deep breath, waiting for the sense of home to catch up. The place looked perfect, too perfect. Pillows aligned like a catalog photo. No clutter. No signs of a rushed morning. Savannah wasn't home yet, and I was glad for that. Gave me a few minutes to ground myself. I headed toward the bedroom, planning to shower, maybe grab a beer from the fridge first, let my body sink back into stillness. That's when I saw it. One of my shirts, a white dress shirt, crisp and clean, hung on the outer knob of the wardrobe like it had just been laundered. Odd. I hadn't worn it on tour. Hadn't even packed it. The collar was buttoned like it had been prepped for something. But it wasn't the placement that caught me. It was the mark. Just beneath the collar on the right side, right above where my chest would be. A faint smudge. Muted red. Not quite pink. Something like crushed rose petals mixed with wine. Lipstick. I stepped closer. The stain wasn't dramatic, not like it was meant to be seen, but it was there. Softly smudged in a way that said it wasn't from a kiss on the cheek kind of moment. It wasn't one of Savannah's lipsticks, I knew that. Hers were neutrals. Glossy browns, sheer pinks. Never this. I stared at it longer than I should have, jaw tightening. Then I reached out, touched the fabric. The texture felt normal. Fresh. I looked at the inside tag, dry cleaned 2 days ago. I hadn't worn that shirt in at least a month. Definitely not before tour. My mind jumped through hoops to explain it away. Maybe it was old, like from some past event, and just reappeared during cleaning. Maybe it really was from the dry cleaner, some careless accident, maybe even. The front door clicked open. Ethan? Her voice rang out, light, surprised. In here, I called back, still staring at the shirt like it might confess something if I watched it long enough. Savannah stepped into the doorway, her work heels in her hand, makeup still flawless despite the heat. She looked good, almost too put together for someone who just got off work. She blinked, then lit up. You're home early? I nodded slowly, letting the silence stretch a beat too long. Caught an early flight out of Charlotte. Figured I'd come home and surprise you. Her smile faltered just a touch. Then returned. That's sweet. I gestured toward the shirt. Did you notice this? She followed my eyes. I watched her face as it registered. Oh, she said lightly, moving closer. That? I nodded again, watching her. Her voice came fast. That's probably from that Halloween party, remember? 2 years ago, the one where I wore that dark red dress. I think you wore this shirt then. That was a while ago. Yeah, but you wore it again a couple months ago too, I think. Maybe the stain just set in more when they cleaned it. You know how some old stains come back out. I stayed quiet. Then she added, as if on instinct, or Maria, the cleaning lady, maybe she got makeup on it when she was hanging it up. You know she sometimes touches up the ironing when we forget. Her hand moved toward the shirt, brushing it, examining it. She tilted her head like it was the first time she'd noticed it. But her explanations had come too quickly, too organized. Neatly packaged like a story she'd practiced. I gave her a long look. Seems convenient. She laughed, a little too loud. You're making that face. The one you make when you think I'm hiding something. Are you? That made her pause. For just a second. It wasn't a dramatic silence, but I saw the flicker. The flash of something behind her eyes, like a window shut quickly before a storm could be seen. Of course not, she said, smiling. You're paranoid. Am I? Babe, it's a lipstick stain. It's not like there's a love letter tucked into your sock drawer. She was deflecting. Cleverly. Gently pushing the conversation back into light territory like it was all a misunderstanding. The kind of push someone gives when they've done this before, not the first time, maybe not the 10th. Yeah, I said quietly. You're probably right. But I didn't believe it. And I think, deep down, she knew I didn't. We stood there for another moment, the air between us thick with a new tension. One that hadn't been there before. Something had shifted. Not a full earthquake, not yet, but the tremor before one. The kind of shift you feel in your bones but can't quite explain to anyone else. Something had cracked. She moved past me, kicked off her heels near the closet, and started talking about dinner plans. Work drama. Small talk. I barely registered it. My mind was still on that smudge. Later that evening, I found myself standing in the kitchen, pouring a glass of bourbon. She was humming in the bathroom, washing her face. The sound of water and Savannah's voice blended into the evening like it was any other Thursday. but something inside me was off-kilter. I looked at the shirt again, still hanging there. I hadn't moved it. Couldn't. I thought about the last few weeks. Her late nights at the office. The way she'd started keeping her phone face down. Her new obsession with perfume, even on casual errands. I'd noticed it all, just hadn't wanted to connect the dots. Until now. It wasn't just the lipstick stain. It was how quickly she covered it. How she controlled the narrative before I even had a chance to ask real questions. How come she was? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling while she breathed soft and even, like she didn't have a single doubt in the world. I tried to push the feeling down, tried to tell myself I was overthinking. But it kept rising like floodwater under a locked door. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But something about that stain, about the way she responded, it had cracked the lens I saw her through. Now, everything looked just slightly off. I didn't bring it up again the next day. Or the day after that. I acted normal or close enough to it. But from that moment on, I started watching differently. Listening more closely. I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was a man trying to solve a puzzle I hadn't even realized existed. And the more I paid attention, the more I saw things I couldn't ignore. But that came later. For now, the shirt remained in the wardrobe untouched. Like a bookmark in the middle of a story I wasn't ready to finish. The lipstick stain should have been my wake-up call. But if I'm being honest, the signs were there long before that. I just wasn't looking, or maybe I was, and I didn't want to see them for what they really were. Either way, that small smear of color cracked something open in me, and once the crack was there, everything else started leaking through. In the days that followed, my thoughts became a running reel of things I'd once shrugged off. Like how Savannah had started working late. At first, it was occasional, a big pitch, quarter-end reports, client dinners. Totally normal stuff. She's in finance and long hours come with the territory. But then occasional turned into most days. Thursdays bled into weekends. She'd come home after 9, sometimes after 10, eyes tired but makeup still immaculate. Always an excuse. Gregory needed last-minute numbers or Mandy double-booked the conference room. I didn't question her. Why would I? She was successful. Smart. Driven. That's one of the things I'd loved most about her, how she never let anything get in the way of her goals. But now, looking back, I wondered how many of those nights were spent in boardrooms and how many weren't. Then there was her phone. Savannah was never glued to it, not until maybe 6 months ago. Suddenly, it never left her side. If I so much as glanced at it, her hand would swoop down to cover the screen. Notifications were always on silent, and the screen went black instantly when she set it down, if she ever set it down. Once, I walked past her office door and saw her smiling at the screen, the kind of smile that doesn't belong to spreadsheets. When she noticed me, her thumb darted across the display so fast it looked like instinct. I didn't say anything. Instead, I told myself she was just stressed. I even bought her a massage package for her birthday, hoping it would take the edge off. It didn't. One night, about 2 weeks before I found the lipstick, I woke up to the sound of water running. I glanced at the clock, 2:17 a.m. Savannah wasn't beside me. I got up, walked to the bathroom, and paused at the half-closed door. She was in the shower. The light from her tablet flickered through the glass. I could hear muffled audio, maybe a video or music, I wasn't sure. She said it helped her unwind. But who takes a steam shower in the middle of the night while watching videos? That night, I sat awake until she came back to bed. She didn't notice I was still up. Maybe the oddest moment was about a month earlier. We'd planned a family trip to Asheville, just a quiet weekend away, something we both said we needed. But 2 days before we were supposed to leave, she told me she couldn't go. Last-minute work conference. Nothing she could do about it. She apologized, said we'd rebook. But we never did. Later, I found out the conference didn't appear on her company's calendar. At the time, I didn't even think to double-check. It wasn't until after the lipstick stain that I started retracing everything, like stepping back through a dream where things don't quite add up. Another time, I remember her coming home wearing a bracelet I didn't recognize. It was subtle, a rose gold with a tiny charm. She said it was from a client, a thank you for helping close a big deal. I asked which client, and she waved me off. You don't know them, babe, she said, they're from Charlotte. That answer felt designed to close the conversation rather than invite more of it. And that wasn't the only piece of jewelry. A new pair of earrings. A different watch. She never used to buy herself much, and when she did, she told me about it. Now things just showed up. Quietly. Almost like she hoped I wouldn't notice. And for a while, I didn't. The shift wasn't just in her schedule or her phone, it was in how she moved through the world. How she moved around me. Savannah used to pull me into her life, gallery openings, charity events, rooftop galas where the champagne flowed and the people smiled with perfect teeth. She liked having me on her arm. Said I grounded her. But sometime last winter, the invitations stopped. At first, I thought maybe things had just gotten hectic. But then I saw the photos online, press releases, company Instagram posts, tagged stories from her coworkers. Savannah in a black dress at the Peterson Foundation ball. Savannah at a client mixer in Buckhead. Always poised, always glowing, always alone. She never brought me up. Never mentioned I had a conflict. She just didn't include me. Like she'd carved out a separate world where I didn't exist and preferred it that way. I started paying attention to the little things. The way her hugs got shorter. The way her kisses moved from lips to cheek. The way she always seemed to be in a rush even when she wasn't late. She used to sit beside me on the couch, legs curled up, head on my shoulder. Lately, she'd perch on the edge like she had one foot out the door, always just about to check on something or heading upstairs for a minute, which often turned into disappearing for the night. One night, I asked her directly, "Are we okay?" I said. We were lying in bed, both facing the ceiling. She turned her head, frowning. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You've seemed far away lately." She exhaled through her nose. "Ethan, I'm tired. Work's insane. You know that. Can we not turn every mood swing into a crisis?" I nodded. Sure. But I couldn't stop wondering, had she already left me in her mind and just forgotten to tell the rest of her body? The most damning part was how normal I made it all feel. Like it was somehow my job to be understanding, to keep the peace, to give her space. I told myself that couples go through phases. That maybe I'd been too caught up in my own work or not attentive enough. That I just needed to be patient. But patience started to feel like denial dressed up as virtue. After the lipstick incident, I started noticing how often she deleted her call logs. She said it was a privacy thing, company policy, something about client confidentiality. But one night, I saw a missed call flash on her screen from someone labeled simply as G. That's it. Just the letter. She tapped the decline button so fast it was like a reflex. Then she turned the phone face down and changed the subject. When I brought it up the next morning, casually, like it didn't matter, she said it was a guy from legal, someone who annoyed her. "He keeps calling late," she added, rolling her eyes. "Honestly, I should block him." But she didn't. One night, while she was in the shower, I checked her call history. G wasn't listed anywhere. Neither was the number. She'd already deleted it. That's when I started writing things down. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friend, Jordan. But every night after she fell asleep, I opened the notes app on my phone and typed a few sentences. Just bullet points. Dates. Things she said. Things that didn't add up. I didn't know what I was looking for. Proof, maybe. Or just confirmation that I wasn't crazy. A part of me still hoped I was wrong. That I was spinning stories from scraps. But deep down, I think I already knew. Whatever was happening, it wasn't new. It wasn't a moment of weakness or a brief misstep. It was a pattern, deliberate, practiced, careful. Savannah was hiding something. I just hadn't found it yet. I didn't go looking for proof, not directly. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I still wanted to be wrong. But proof has a way of finding you when you least want it. It was a Wednesday afternoon when it happened. I was sitting at a coffee shop near Midtown, headphones on, laptop open, trying to edit a demo for a new client. The place was buzzing with conversation, students, freelancers, a couple guys in suits talking way too loudly about commission splits. Just background noise. Until someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned. It was Marcus Venn, a guy I hadn't seen in years. We weren't close, more of a mutual through a mutual kind of connection, but we'd played together once at a charity gig downtown. He used to do freelance security work after hours. I remembered because he'd helped break up a fight during that show without even dropping his drink. "Ethan Cole, right?" he said, smiling. "Man, been a minute." We exchanged the usual catch-up lines. "What have you been up to? How's life? Still doing music?" Then his tone shifted. "You still with Savannah?" The question landed like a soft punch. I hesitated. "Yeah," I said slowly, "we're still married." He nodded, but something about the way his eyebrows lifted made my stomach tighten. "What's that look?" I asked. Marcus looked like he was about to say something, then stopped himself. Glanced around the room. "Can we talk outside for a sec?" I followed him out to the patio, the air sticky with Georgia humidity. "I'm sorry if this is overstepping," he said, his hands up, palms open. "I wasn't gonna say anything, but I've seen you around a couple times and I figured. I don't know. If it were me, I'd want to know." "Know what?" "I work security at the Langford," he said, a swanky boutique hotel downtown, the kind that serves lavender cocktails and hosts banking conferences with valet service. "I handle lobby surveillance a few nights a week. 2 Fridays ago, I saw your wife." I felt my pulse shift, steady but slow, like a drumline right before the drop. She was with a guy, Marcus continued. Tall, clean-shaven, salt and pepper hair. Expensive watch. I didn't think anything of it at first, but then I recognized her from the foundation gala. And the way they were standing, it wasn't professional. I didn't speak. Just waited. I pulled a clip from the cameras, he said. Didn't even mean to. I was reviewing a report about a missing purse. But she was right there on the footage. You want me to send it to you? I said yes, of course. He asked for my number. 30 minutes later, the video came through. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at the notification, thumb hovering. My body already knew what it would show. My mind was slower to catch up. When I finally tapped play, the first frame landed like ice in my veins. The hotel lobby was dimly lit, all soft golds and expensive marble. Savannah stepped into frame wearing a blue dress I hadn't seen before, sleek, professional, but cut low in the back. She looked radiant, purposeful. Her heels clicked confidently as she moved toward the man Marcus described, tall, polished, smiling like he already knew the ending of a joke no one else had heard. They didn't shake hands. They didn't wave from a distance. They walked directly into each other's arms. Savannah tilted her chin, closed her eyes, and let him kiss her. Not a peck. Not we're friends but maybe too close. It was a kiss. Familiar. Slow. His hand slid around her waist like it had done it 100 times. The timestamp said 9:42 p.m. That was the night she told me she was having dinner with her department to celebrate the end of a grueling quarter. She'd sent a picture of a dessert, creme brulee, half-eaten, with a caption that read, "Don't wait up, everyone's buzzing about bonuses." Now, watching her in that lobby, I understood why. I paused the video, dragged it back, hit play again. I watched the kiss 3 times. Each time, the pit in my stomach expanded. The details stabbed harder, the way she leaned into him, the familiar rhythm of the touch, the soft laugh as they pulled apart like they were the only 2 people in the world. She hadn't just slipped. This wasn't new. That kiss wasn't a mistake, it was muscle memory. I forwarded the video to my email, archived the message from Marcus, and sat there with my screen dimming in front of me. It felt like my brain had short-circuited. Like my body was still sitting in that cafe, but my mind had left the building. She had lied. Repeatedly. With ease. With warmth in her voice. And the worst part? I hadn't even confronted her yet. I didn't need to. The truth was complete without her input. Later that night, I didn't ask her how dinner had been. I didn't mention the video. I just watched her, the way she peeled off her earrings like nothing mattered, the way she hummed while brushing her teeth. I nodded, smiled when appropriate, and excused myself early for bed. Not out of avoidance. Out of clarity. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to give her the drama. That's what she expected. Maybe even feared. I wasn't going to hand her that version of me. Instead, I started packing the invisible boxes in my head, not of stuff, but of truth. Everything had a label now. What she said. What she did. Who she chose. And then 2 weeks later, she filed for divorce. No fight. No apology. Just a note on the counter when I got home from a weekend gig. We both deserve different versions of happy. I'll be staying with a friend. Let's talk next week. Savannah didn't name the friend. She didn't have to. Within a month, she posted a soft launch engagement announcement on LinkedIn, not even social media, but professional bragging territory. The caption said, "Excited to enter this next chapter with a partner who challenges and inspires me daily." Couldn't ask for a better teammate. Attached was a polished hedge asterisk T of her and the same man from the video. Gregory Stansfield. I recognized the name from news clips, a rising figure in regional finance. Smooth, connected, camera ready. The comments were full of congratulations. People clapped with emojis and buzzwords. None of them knew she had been married 6 weeks prior. None of them knew about the stain. The lies. The story that had unraveled in my hands like an old thread pulled from the hem of something once beautiful. It would have been easy to rage. To post the video. To expose her. But something in me said no. Not because I was weak. But because I was done being the guy waiting for her to choose differently. She had chosen. Now it was my turn. Atlanta wasn't home anymore. Not after Savannah. Not after the silence that filled every corner of the condo we used to share. The city suddenly felt too big, too curated, too full of faces that smiled with their mouths but not their eyes. Every familiar street turned into a rerun of something I didn't want to remember, that overpriced Thai place where we celebrated her promotion, the hotel bar where she toasted with clients while Gregory waited outside in the parking garage. My favorite music store closed the same week the divorce papers were signed, as if even the universe wanted me to move on. So I left. Not with fanfare. Not even with a plan. Just a U-Haul full of essentials and a list of names I hadn't called in years. I drove north for a while, then west, until I ended up in Memphis, a city that still felt like a little bit of everything. Gritty and smooth, loud and soft. It had rhythm, and I needed that more than anything. I rented a modest place on the east side, a single story with a porch big enough for a chair and a mug of black coffee. The walls were pale green, the floors scuffed just enough to feel honest. No skyline views. No concierge. Just space. Savannah had taken the espresso machine. I didn't care. I'd never liked it anyway. I spent the first few weeks doing what I could to stay invisible. I didn't have a grand ambition. I just wanted to feel something that wasn't sharp. I played a little, bar gigs, open mic nights, even offered guitar lessons to the kid next door. That's what led me to a studio job in Cooper Young, a dusty little spot above a vinyl shop that needed someone to fix their mix board and help run demos for local artists. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Nobody there knew my past. Nobody asked. From there, things moved faster than I expected. I took on a contract producing voiceovers for indie documentaries. One of those projects, a civil rights history doc *T by a group out of Birmingham, ended up winning regional awards. My name was in the credits. People noticed. I kept my head down. By winter, I partnered with a couple of tech guys who were developing a music collaboration app like a virtual studio space for long-distance artists. They had ideas, I had audio expertise. We clicked. I invested a little. Not much. 6 months later, it went viral. Suddenly, I was fielding calls I hadn't even imagined getting. Licensing deals. Interviews. They wanted a story, a founder's journey. I gave them nothing. Let the code speak for itself. The irony was rich. While Savannah was out broadcasting her engagement on panels and breakfast roundtables, I was quietly building something people actually used. I stayed out of the spotlight on purpose. My name was in the fine print on the patents on the App Store listing. But I never posted about it. Never bragged. I didn't need to. Somewhere in those months, I bought a grand piano. A 1968 Steinway with faded keys and a scratch on the lid that looked like a river bend. I found it at an estate sale hidden in the back of a ranch house that had clearly been cleaned out in a rush. The seller said it hadn't been played in years. I paid cash and had it delivered to my place the next morning. It sat in my living room untouched for almost a year. Not because I didn't want to play it, but because I wasn't ready. That piano felt like the last thing I had bought for the us version of me. I had imagined Savannah sitting beside me while I played something quiet and blue, her hand tracing the edge of the bench like she always used to. Now, I just walked past it like it was a museum piece. But I didn't sell it. I guess some things aren't meant to be erased. Just lived with. Every so often I'd hear about Savannah. Not directly, but through friends of friends or social noise I didn't ask for. She was on a Rising Stars in Finance list 1 month. Gave a TEDx talk about navigating career pivots with resilience. The photo they used showed her smiling next to Gregory, both of them in tailored suits, eyes glossy with ambition. Like betrayal was a brand strategy. I didn't flinch. Didn't save the link. I had nothing to prove anymore. The divorce had been clean, at least on paper. No kids. No contested assets. She left me the house but took most of the furniture. I didn't fight her. What's the point in holding on to things if the energy attached to them rots? We didn't speak much after the paperwork. Just the occasional text, logistics, signatures, a polite question about a tax form. Her tone always polite. Detached. Like we were colleagues who'd once worked at the same company and now just happened to share a filing cabinet in legal history. I think what struck me most wasn't the betrayal, it was the efficiency. How quickly she shifted from wife to witness. From partner to press release. But I didn't resent her. Truly. I couldn't anymore. There comes a point where the anger burns itself out. Where you look around and realize that you've spent so much time measuring your pain by someone else's choices that you've stopped building anything of your own. That moment came to me one night when I was standing in the middle of my studio surrounded by empty coffee cups and half-finished tracks. I looked down at the board, all the knobs and dials blinking like a second language, and I realized I was happy. Not ecstatic. Not healed. But functional. Focused. Even hopeful. I'd made something out of the wreckage. Not to spite her. Not to show the world anything. Just to prove I could. By the second spring in Memphis, I had more work than I could handle. The app took off internationally. I got invited to speak at a tech and culture summit. I declined. Instead, I took a gig composing the score for a podcast about urban development and memory. It wasn't flashy, but it mattered to me. People started asking questions. Where had I come from? How had I stayed off the radar? I just smiled. One day, I got a message on LinkedIn, Savannah again. The profile picture was updated. Same warm smile, same eyes, but she looked tired. Maybe it was the lighting. Maybe it was just me. The message was short. I heard about the app. Congrats. Truly. You deserve it. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because there was nothing left to say. What I'd built spoke louder than any reply. By now, people assume stories like mine end with some kind of vengeance. That the scorned guy wins the lottery, finds a new love, and rides off into some poetic justice. But life isn't a screenplay. I didn't win. I just survived long enough to grow into something I could stand in. Something honest. I still think about her sometimes, but not with longing. More like remembering a song you used to love before you knew what the lyrics meant. Savannah had been a melody once. Now she was just part of the silence that taught me how to listen again. 3 years. That's how long it had been since I saw Savannah in person. By then, Memphis had become something solid. Not just an escape, a foundation. The app was thriving, the studio was booked months out, and the quiet home by the lake had grown into more than just a house. It was peace. It was mine. I had moved on, not in the cheesy rom-com way, not with some rebound romance and a 6-month reset. I moved on in the kind of way that only happens when you've stared down your worst moment and lived through the quiet afterward. It wasn't always graceful. Some nights I still found myself playing the old chords, chasing echoes. But those nights got fewer. Softer. Then the invitation arrived. A thick cream envelope with gold-embossed lettering. No return address. My name handwritten in perfect calligraphy. Ethan Cole. I already knew who it was from before I opened it. Inside, a formal invitation to Savannah and Gregory Stansfield's recommitment ceremony. Not a wedding, they were already legally married, apparently. But this was a public celebration. A rooftop ceremony in Atlanta. Full black tie. Crystal chandeliers and skyline views. A who's who guest list of the financial world. And scribbled on the back in pen, Maya's handwriting. Please come. It would mean a lot to me. Love you, Dad. That was the curveball. Maya. Our daughter. She was 19 now, in college. Smart, fiercely independent, half Savannah's wit and half my stubborn silence. She hadn't taken sides in the divorce. She'd refused to be dragged into it. But we had our bond. Weekly calls, music recs swapped by text, the occasional overnight visit when her schedule allowed. She never asked me for anything, not really. Which made this hit harder. I stared at the envelope for a long time. Then I RSVP'd yes. The ceremony was held at the top of the Halcyon Building, a sleek glass tower in downtown Atlanta that looked more like a luxury showroom than a venue. Savannah always did have a taste for things that made statements. The entire 42nd floor had been transformed into a gallery of curated perfection, white orchids dangling from floating platforms, a string quartet playing minimalist covers of 80s love songs, and a dozen staffers weaving through with flutes of chilled rose and conversation-ready smiles. I wore a charcoal suit. Clean. Understated. Nothing flashy. I arrived early and stood near the edge of the rooftop, pretending to admire the view. The skyline shimmered like a screensaver, beautiful and completely detached from reality. People moved around me, shaking hands, posing for photos, greeting Savannah with admiration that bordered on worship. Gregory, of course, worked the room like a seasoned politician, firm handshakes, 2-second pauses for meaningful eye contact. He looked like a magazine cover, crisp lines, tailored vest, nothing out of place. He even had the nerve to wear a white pocket square folded into a perfect triangle, the same style I used to wear to events with her. No one knew who I was. And that suited me just fine. Savannah saw me about 20 minutes in. She did a double take, the polite kind, not the cinematic kind. No audible gasp, no champagne dropped. Just a flicker. Her eyes widened for half a second and then she reset. Ethan, she said when she reached me, voice smooth as ever. I'm glad you came. Her dress was all contrast, minimal in shape, dramatic in texture. Ivory silk with a sheer neckline and subtle embroidery along the sides. Magazine-worthy. Unreal. I nodded. Maya asked. She hesitated, just a blink, then smiled. She was thrilled when you said yes. She's around here somewhere. Probably hiding from all the photo ops. I can relate. We stood in silence for a few seconds. Just the two of us, surrounded by sound and sparkle. There was nothing to say. Not really. Everything that mattered had already been said or left unspoken for too long. Gregory eventually joined us. Ethan, he said, extending a hand. I've heard a lot about you. I didn't take his hand right away. Let it hang there, just long enough to register the chill. Then I shook it once. Firm. Likewise. His smile tightened a fraction. Glad you could make it. Really? Before I could answer, Maya appeared. She wore a navy jumpsuit with heels she clearly hated, already holding them in one hand. She looked grown. Steady. And exactly like someone who knew how to walk through two worlds without choosing either. Dad, she said, hugging me. Thanks for coming. I wouldn't miss it. Her smile softened. I know. We talked for a few minutes, Maya and I, catching up on school and life and her decision to drop her minor in economics. Mom still doesn't know. Please don't tell her. I promised I wouldn't. We laughed. Then dinner was announced. The ballroom was absurd. Every inch of the space was designed for aesthetic worship, from the gilded place cards to the harpist tucked into a floral alcove. It wasn't a wedding so much as a photo shoot in motion. And everyone played their part. I sat at a table near the back with a few extended relatives and someone from Gregory's firm who kept trying to explain cryptocurrency derivatives to anyone who didn't actively walk away. I didn't mind the seat. It gave me space to observe. To watch Savannah glide from table to table, camera ready, polished, untouchable. She looked like she'd never known imperfection. And I realized something I hadn't known until that moment. It didn't hurt anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't envious. I didn't want her back. I didn't want to unwrite what happened. I just wanted my meal, a drink, and a quiet exit. Which is what I was planning until the elevator changed everything. I slipped away right after dessert. While the rest of the room geared up for speeches and cake cutting, I made my way toward the elevators, a sleek chrome wall tucked behind white drapes and strategically placed candles. I pressed the button. The doors opened. And then, just as they began to close, someone called out, "Hold, please." I didn't turn around. I just hit the button. Savannah stepped in. Of course she did. The doors closed behind her. The silence was immediate. Sealed. We stood side by side. Two people who once shared a life, now just sharing air. I didn't look at her. Not at first. Then I reached into my jacket and pulled out my phone. Turned the screen toward her. No words. Just numbers. My investment portfolio. One line highlighted. Stansfield Private Holdings, 14.2%. Her breath caught. I watched it hit her in real time. The math. The implications. Gregory's firm had been partially acquired in a merger the year before, a merger I helped fund quietly through a tech syndicate. My shares weren't public, but they were real. You're one of the stakeholders? She asked, voice low. I nodded once. She blinked. Why? I believed in the numbers, I said. They were solid. Savannah's lips parted, but she didn't speak. In that moment, there was no script, no spotlight, no curated narrative. Just her. Just me. Just the truth, heavy and inescapable. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. I stepped out without looking back. And for the first time in a long time, she was the one left behind. As the elevator doors slid shut behind me, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt, still. For once, I had no need to prove anything. Savannah had built a world of optics, polish, ambition, control, and intense silent seconds. I'd cracked the frame from the inside. I hadn't said a word. The numbers spoke louder. That wasn't revenge. It was release. When I reached the street, I didn't look back. I walked into the night like a man who finally stopped carrying someone else's story. Months passed. Savannah stepped away from Gregory's firm quietly without statement. Rumors swirled about financial discrepancies. Gregory resigned under pressure. Their public faces dissolved. Meanwhile, Maya transferred to a music program in Nashville, chasing something real. She visits often. We jam, we talk. I live near a quiet lake now. I still write. Still build. I didn't win by beating anyone. I won by refusing to become them. That was never the goal. Peace was. And peace is exactly what I found.